Okay, so, we all love anime,
Hmm.
and you've sent in tons of requests about, diving into, like, realistic military anime.
Yeah.
And it seems like maybe people are, you know, gearing up for a convention or they're just really fascinated by this,
Yeah.
corner of anime.
Right.
So either way, get ready because we're going to, explore this world where it's not just giant robots and explosions.
Yeah.
Tactics actually matter.
Yeah.
And even in fantasy worlds, there are
Mhm.
consequences.
Definitely. And, we've got this great CBR article that lists what they consider the 10 most realistic military anime ranked. So that's like a great starting point. But what's cool about this is that it's
Yeah.
not just, tanks and battleships.
Yeah.
We're going to uncover, the anime that use kind of military themes to explore all these like really complex ideas about war and politics and what it even means to be human.
I've glanced at the list and I'm
Yeah.
already so intrigued.
Oh, yeah.
There's like an anime that predicted Civil War.
Wow.
And then there's one where it's like medieval knights
Yeah.
clashing with modern soldiers,
Mhm.
and even one about arms dealers navigating a world
Mhm.
where right and wrong is just like completely blurry.
Yeah, see, that's what makes these anime so interesting because they really go beyond just good guys versus bad guys.
Yeah.
They delve into like the gray areas,
Right.
show that even in the midst of like all this conflict, there's shades of, good and bad on all sides.
It's like they're holding up a mirror to our own world.
Yeah.
It's never as simple as it seems.
Exactly. War is never simple, and there's always like,
Yeah.
more to the story than what's on the surface.
Absolutely.
And one of the things that makes this list in particular so interesting is that they've got such a variety of anime.
Yeah.
We've got the classic mecha shows that ditch the over-the-top action for like gritty realism.
Okay.
Isekai anime that drop characters into these brutal military settings.
Yeah.
And then even shows that draw parallels to historical events.
Whoa.
Like the fall of the Roman Empire.
Okay, so hold on. Let's break down this isekai thing for a second, because I know it's a super popular genre.
Yeah.
But for those who haven't, like, ventured down that rabbit hole, what does that even mean?
Okay, so isekai basically means another world.
Okay.
And it's this genre where the main character gets transported to, well, another world.
Okay.
And often it's a fantasy realm with magic and mythical creatures and all of that.
Right.
But what's really cool about the isekai on this list, like Alderamin on the Sky and the Saga of Tanya the Evil, is that they use that another world setting to explore military themes in this like really unique way.
So instead of the character becoming some kind of like overpowered hero, they're actually forced to use their brains and strategic thinking to survive in a world where it's like really high stakes.
It's like the ultimate test, right? Yeah.
Can you outsmart your opponents when magic swords and dragon slaying powers are off the table?
I love that it's like strategy.
It is.
Cunning and understanding the complexities of warfare, even in a world that might seem fantastical.
Exactly. And those aren't the only shows that are like turning the genre on its head.
Right.
Even some classic mecha series like Gundam, the 08th MS Team, and Armored Trooper Votoms, which do have those giant robots. They choose to really focus on the human element more so than like the flashy battles. So for those who aren't familiar with Gundam, new types are basically these like evolved humans with psychic abilities that are often crucial in piloting the most powerful mechs.
Right.
But even with these new types, the 08th MS Team really zooms in on like the soldiers on the ground, the day-to-day struggles, and just like the really real cost of war.
It's like they're saying, look, even in a future with giant robots, war is still messy.
Yeah.
It's still brutal. It's still deeply affecting for the people who are fighting it.
Absolutely. And Votoms actually takes that grittiness even further.
Okay.
So the mecha in Votoms are called scope dogs.
Okay.
And they're far from glamorous. They're clunky, mass-produced machines that are really designed for practicality over aesthetics.
Okay.
And get this, they're nicknamed bottoms.
Bottoms.
Because they're considered expendable.
Whoa.
Just like the pilots who operate them.
Wow, bottoms. That's a bleak name.
It is.
It really kind of sets the tone for what kind of world these characters are living in.
It does, and it highlights that key element of realistic military anime, which is really the emphasis on the human cost of war. They don't shy away from the emotional toll or the political maneuvering or the moral gray areas.
Okay.
That come with conflict.
That's what I find so fascinating about it. It's not sugarcoating things.
Yeah.
No, it's forcing you to like confront these uncomfortable truths.
Yeah.
And consider perspectives you might not have even considered before.
Speaking of uncomfortable truths, Jormungand takes us into the world of arms dealing. Where the protagonists are literally merchants of war. Profiting from the conflict. It's a perspective we rarely see explored in anime. And it can be quite unsettling.
Yeah, not your typical heroic storyline.
No.
Really makes you question, like, who are the real bad guys?
Yeah.
What motivates people to engage in this?
Right.
And what are, like, the wider consequences of their actions?
It really makes you think.
Yeah.
And that's something that a lot of these realistic military anime do. They raise these important questions about war. Morality, the human condition.
Like 8686, for example.
Yeah.
It uses mecha, but in a way that's, like, completely different than what you might expect.
Right.
It actually uses those mechs to explore things like social injustice and the dehumanization of marginalized groups.
One of the most striking things about 86 is how the designs of the mechs themselves reflect like the social hierarchy.
Interesting.
So the juggernauts that are piloted by the oppressed 86 are these clunky disposable mechs that visually emphasize their dehumanized status.
It's like a powerful visual metaphor.
It is.
And it shows how they're thinking about these issues on multiple levels, not just the plot, but even in the visuals and the symbolism to convey that deeper meaning.
And then we have shows like Zipang that take a modern Japanese destroyer and throw it back in time to World War II.
Whoa.
Talk about a high-stakes scenario.
Yeah, I'd be terrified if I was in their shoes. Knowing what we know now about World War II, it would be almost impossible to just stand by and watch.
Exactly. And that's the kind of moral dilemma that Zipang explores. So effectively, it raises all these questions about responsibility, the butterfly effect, the very nature of time itself.
It makes you wonder if you had that power to change the past, would you? And what unintended consequences might arise from altering the course of events?
It's a question that's haunted humanity for centuries. But Zipang brings it to life in a way that feels very immediate and personal.
Okay, so we've got gritty mecha, we've got mind-bending isekai, and now time travel dilemmas. This list is like all over the place in the best way possible.
It is.
And I love how it's highlighting just the breadth of the genre. It's not just one type of story or one setting. There's something here for everyone, as long as you're willing to think a little bit outside the box.
And that's what makes this deep dive so exciting. You know, it's about discovering those hidden gems. The anime that might not be as well known as some of the mainstream giants, but they offer this like depth and complexity that can really surprise you.
And speaking of hidden gems, there's Legend of the Galactic Heroes.
Oh, yes.
Which is this sprawling epic that spans centuries.
It does.
And encompasses a vast cast of characters. And some people would argue that Legend of the Galactic Heroes is even more realistic than Gundam in its portrayal of space opera.
Wow.
Which is wild, considering it's depicting like the fall of a Roman Empire like galactic civilization.
It is a very ambitious show, but it manages to pull it off. It doesn't shy away from the complexities of politics of the human condition. It asks these big questions about the nature of power, the cyclical nature of history, the choices that individuals make in the face of like overwhelming forces.
It's like they took this grand sweep of history and just transposed it onto a galactic scale. Creating a story that feels both epic and incredibly intimate.
And that balance is crucial to the show's success. It manages to be both this thrilling space opera and also a really profound meditation on the human condition.
Okay, and then there's Flag. Which is a show from 2006. That seemingly predicted the plot of Civil War.
Wow.
By exploring the human cost of conflict through the eyes of a photojournalist covering a war.
It's amazing how Flag captured that theme of moral ambiguity in the complexities of modern warfare years before Civil War hit the big screen. And it does so in a way that's both personal and thought-provoking.
It really makes you think about the power of storytelling
Yeah.
How different mediums can explore similar themes in such unique and compelling ways.
Exactly. And it also highlights another key element of realistic military anime, which is the focus on the individual stories within the larger conflict.
Yeah.
So it's not just about armies clashing. It's about the people who make up those armies.
Right.
Their motivations, their struggles, their sacrifices.
It's about putting a human face on war, reminding us that behind every statistic, every battle, every political decision, there are real people whose lives are being impacted in profound ways.
Absolutely. And that's why these shows resonate with viewers on such a deep level.
Right.
You know, they're not just entertainment. They're opportunities to empathize, to understand, to reflect on the complexities of the world we live in.
So are we ready to unpack some of these shows in more detail?
Let's dive in.
Because I am dying to know more about how they actually pull off this balance of realism, action, and thought-provoking themes.
All right, so let's start with Mobile Suit Gundam, the 08th MS team.
Okay.
A show that manages to be both a thrilling mecha adventure and a poignant exploration of the human cost of war.
This is where it gets really interesting.
It does. The 08th MS team takes us right into the heart of the action.
Okay.
But it does so in a way that feels very grounded, gritty, and ultimately very human.
Okay, I'm ready.
All right, so the 08th MS team is unique because it kind of shifts the focus away from the large-scale space battles and those new type pilots that we often associate with Gundam.
Okay.
And instead, it zooms in on this small mobile suit unit that's fighting behind enemy lines in Southeast Asia.
So it's like a ground-level view of war.
Exactly.
Even though it's set in this futuristic space opera.
Right. We're not following the legendary heroes.
Right.
Or the political masterminds. We're with the ordinary soldiers who are facing the harsh realities of combat day in and day out.
And how does that change the way the mecha action is portrayed?
Yeah.
Because I'm guessing it's not all flashy moves and impossible feats of strength.
You're right. The mecha action in the 08th MS team feels much more down-to-earth compared to other Gundam shows.
Okay.
For one thing, the mecha themselves are treated more like tools than these invincible weapons.
Right.
They're prone to breakdowns.
Okay.
They require constant maintenance, and they can be just as dangerous to the pilots as they are to the enemy.
That's so different from those mecha anime, where it's the robots can defy physics and do all these insane stunts.
Yeah. In the 08th MS team, the battles are much more tactical. And they're often brutal. They highlight the importance of teamwork, strategy, resourcefulness.
So it's more about the soldiers inside the robots than the robots themselves.
The show really emphasizes the human cost of war.
Okay.
The camaraderie between the soldiers and the moral dilemmas that they face. It's a reminder that even in a futuristic setting, war is ultimately a human endeavor with human consequences.
It's not just about cool robots fighting. It's about the people caught in the crossfire.
Right.
The choices they make and how those choices impact their lives and the lives of others.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And it's not just Gundam that embraces this kind of realism.
Okay.
Armored Trooper Votoms goes even further.
All right, tell me more about Votoms.
Okay.
I'm getting the sense that it's not for the faint of heart.
It's definitely intense.
Okay.
So, as we mentioned before, the mecha in Votoms are called scope dogs, and they're nicknamed bottoms because of their low status and expendability.
So the name itself reflects the harsh reality of this world. That these pilots and these machines are just seen as disposable.
That's a great observation, and that sense of expendability really permeates the entire show.
Okay.
The battles are messy and brutal. The pilots are often treated as pawns in this larger game.
Right.
And the overall tone is one of survival resilience and just the psychological impact of constant warfare.
So it's not a glorification of war at all. It's a stark depiction of its brutality.
Exactly. Votoms forces you to confront
Yeah.
the darker aspects of war, the things that other shows might gloss over or romanticize.
Right.
And it does so in a way that's both visually striking and emotionally resonant.
The CBR article also mentioned that there's a lot of political intrigue in Votoms.
Yeah.
So how does that play into the overall realism?
Well, the show is set in a universe where this really long and devastating war has just ended. But the after effects are still being felt. There's a lot of suspicion, mistrust, political maneuvering.
Yeah.
Different factions are trying to gain power and influence.
Sounds like a recipe for more conflict.
It certainly is. Yes. And the characters are caught in the middle of it all.
Right.
They're constantly having to make these difficult choices, navigating a web of lies and betrayals. Yeah. And they're just trying to stay alive in a world where even the smallest mistake can be fatal.
So it's a very complex and morally ambiguous setting.
It is.
Which I'm starting to realize is a hallmark of these realistic military anime.
It is. They don't offer easy answers or clear-cut heroes and villains.
It's a far cry from like the black and white morality you see in some other genres. And I think that's what makes these shows so thought-provoking.
Yeah.
They challenge us to consider different perspectives, to question our own biases, and to grapple with the uncomfortable truths about war and its impact on humanity.
You're absolutely right. And that's a perfect segue into our next example.
Okay.
86.
Okay.
A show that uses mecha to explore social injustice in a way that's both powerful and deeply unsettling.
Okay. I'm intrigued. Tell me more about how 86 tackles these themes.
So 86 is set in this world where this nation called the Republic of San Magnolia is at war with the Giadian Empire.
Okay.
And the Republic claims that they're fighting this war without casualties.
That sounds a little suspicious.
It is.
Why could you have a war without casualties?
Well, it's a lie, of course.
Okay.
The truth is that they're using a segregated military force made up of people from this minority group known as the 86.
Okay.
And these soldiers are treated as completely expendable. They're forced to pilot these unmanned drones into dangerous battles, while the Republic's elite citizens remain safe and comfortable.
Wow. That's such a blatant commentary on prejudice and the ways that governments can manipulate information to maintain power.
Exactly. And the mecha designs in 86 actually reflect this dehumanization.
Interesting.
So the 86's mechs are called juggernauts, and they're designed to be disposable.
Right.
They lack like the sleek aesthetics and the advanced features of the Republic's other military hardware.
It's like their mechs are a visual representation of their marginalized status.
That's a great observation.
Yeah.
The show does a fantastic job of weaving together its mecha elements with this social commentary, and it creates this really compelling and thought-provoking narrative.
So it's not just about giant robots fighting each other.
No.
It's about using those robots to explore these deeper issues of prejudice, discrimination, and the abuse of power.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that makes 86 so powerful. It takes this familiar genre and it uses it to tell a story that's both relevant and deeply affecting.
Okay, so we've talked about the mecha anime that really prioritizes that realism over spectacle. What about some of the other anime on this list? The CBR article mentioned a few that use military themes in very unique ways.
And that's what makes this genre so fascinating. It's constantly pushing boundaries, finding new ways to explore the complexities of war and conflict. For example, there's the saga of Tanya the Evil.
Ooh. Now, this one I'm really curious about.
Okay.
It seems to have gotten a lot of buzz online for being a different kind of isekai.
It definitely is. Remember how we talked about isekai usually involving a character being transported to another world and often becoming some kind of hero?
Right.
Well, the saga of Tanya the Evil takes that idea and completely turns it on its head.
So instead of a virtuous hero, we get an evil protagonist.
Exactly. Tanya Degurchev is a former Japanese salaryman who gets reincarnated as a young girl in an alternate version of World War I.
Okay.
But here's the twist. She's ruthless, ambitious, and utterly pragmatic. She uses her knowledge of modern warfare.
Whoa.
Things that are completely foreign to this WWI to climb the ranks of the military and achieve her goals.
So she's actually using her knowledge of modern warfare to her advantage in this historical setting. That's brilliant.
It is.
It's like she's playing 4D chess while everyone else is stuck in checkers.
You got it. And the show doesn't shy away from the darkness of her character. She's not a sympathetic figure.
Right. She's driven by ambition and a desire for power, but that's what makes her so fascinating to watch.
It's a complete subversion of the typical Isekai protagonist. And it sounds like this show uses that subversion to explore some pretty complex themes.
Absolutely. The Saga of Tanya the Evil is a show that's constantly challenging your expectations. It makes you question your own moral compass, your understanding of history, and even the very nature of good and evil.
Okay. So we've got gritty mecha, a villainous Isekai protagonist.
Right.
And now I see Legend of the Galactic Heroes on this list.
Oh, yes.
And I have to admit, the sheer scope of that show is a little intimidating.
It is an epic saga.
Yeah.
It spans centuries. It encompasses a vast cast of characters. But what's amazing is that it manages to be both grand in scale and incredibly intimate in its character development.
So it's not something
to just jump into lightly?
No, it's definitely not a show to jump into lightly.
Okay.
I would recommend starting with the OVA series, which is a more streamlined adaptation of the main story. It's still a significant time investment, but it provides a great introduction to the world, the characters, and the overarching themes.
Because I'm sensing there's a lot to unpack.
There is.
In Legend of the Galactic Heroes.
Yeah.
The CBR article compared it to the fall of the Roman Empire, which is a pretty bold statement.
It is, but one of the main factions in Legend of the Galactic Heroes is the Galactic Empire. This vast and powerful interstellar state that bears a striking resemblance to the Roman Empire. It's a civilization that's slowly decaying from within, plagued by corruption, internal strife, a weakening sense of purpose.
So it's kind of like a cautionary tale. About the dangers of unchecked power and the fragility of even the most powerful empires.
Precisely. And the show doesn't shy away from the complexities of these issues. It presents both the Galactic Empire and the Free Planets Alliance, which is the other main faction, as flawed entities, each with their own strengths and weaknesses.
So it's not about rooting for one side over the other. It's about understanding the motivations and ideologies that drive both sides.
You've grasped the essence of Legend of the Galactic Heroes. It's a show that encourages you to think critically, to question your assumptions, to recognize the nuances of history and politics.
It sounds like a show that has a lot to say about the human condition.
It does.
Even though it's set in this grand, futuristic space opera setting.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that makes it so enduring and thought-provoking. It uses the trappings of science fiction to explore these timeless themes that are just as relevant today as they were centuries ago.
I'm definitely adding that to my watch list.
Okay, good.
But now let's shift gears to a show that takes a completely different approach to history. Zippang. This one throws a modern Japanese destroyer back in time to World War II.
Wow.
Specifically, the Battle of Midway.
That's a high-stakes scenario.
Talk about high stakes. So instead of just witnessing history, these modern-day sailors are suddenly thrust into this situation where they could potentially alter the course of events.
Zippang is a fascinating exploration of alternate history and the ethical dilemmas that come with the potential to change the past.
So the show doesn't offer any, easy answers.
No, it doesn't.
The characters really grapple with this responsibility in a very realistic and nuanced way.
Some might be tempted to use their advanced technology to try to prevent Japan's defeat, while others might be horrified at the thought of interfering with the past.
I can only imagine the tension and the moral debates that must arise within that crew. It's like they're suddenly forced to confront their own beliefs about history duty and the consequences of their actions.
And the show doesn't shy away from those complexities. It presents the character struggles and debates in a way that feels both relatable and thought-provoking.
The CBR article mentions that the time travel aspect doesn't actually detract from the realism. So how does Zippang manage to pull that off?
Well, for one, the show focuses on the human element.
Okay.
So it's not about like flashy time travel paradoxes or altering history for personal gain. It's about the characters, their relationships, their individual journeys as they navigate this extraordinary circumstance.
So it's not just about like the what ifs of history. It's about how those what ifs impact the people who are forced to confront them.
Exactly. And the technology itself is grounded in reality, so they're not using futuristic weapons or gadgets that would seem out of place in World War II.
So it's like they've carefully balanced the historical setting with the fantastical element of time travel, creating a story that feels both plausible and thought-provoking.
And that balance is key to the show's success. It allows viewers to really engage with the historical context, the moral dilemmas, the characters' journeys, without getting bogged down in like implausible scenarios or over-the-top action sequences.
It sounds like Zipang offers a unique perspective on World War II, one that's more focused on the human experience and the moral complexities of war than on grand historical narrative.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's something that all of these realistic military anime have in common. They're not just about battles and explosions. They're about the people who fight in these wars, the choices they make, the consequences they face. They're about the human cost of conflict and the enduring impact it has on individuals and societies.
And those are themes that resonate with viewers regardless of their background or their familiarity with military history.
Absolutely. And that's why these shows are so powerful. They invite us to think critically about war, to question our assumptions, and to empathize with those who are caught in the crossfire. They remind us that even in the most fantastical settings, the human element is always at the heart of the story.
Okay, so we've explored mecha anime that prioritizes realism. We've got Isekai that subverts those expectations and now shows that delve into historical and alternate history settings. What other unique approaches to military themes can we find in this genre?
Well, now let's step into a world where conflict is a business. Jormungand.
Jormungand.
As we touched on earlier, this anime takes a look at the arms trade. From a perspective we rarely see.
And it was described as showing the seediest side of the military-industrial complex.
Yes, it does.
It follows Coco Hekmatar, who's this young arms dealer who's not afraid to get her hands dirty.
She's definitely a morally ambiguous protagonist, and that's what makes the show so compelling. It doesn't try to paint Coco as a hero or a villain. It presents her as this complex and enigmatic character who's driven by her own unique set of motivations.
So what are those motivations? What drives someone to become an arms dealer? To profit from conflict?
That's one of the central questions that Jormungand explores. It delves into the psychology of war, the allure of power, and the moral compromises that people make in pursuit of their goals. And it doesn't offer any easy answers.
It sounds like a show that's willing to ask the hard questions, to challenge our assumptions about right and wrong, and to force us to confront the uncomfortable realities of the world we live in.
Exactly. And it does so through this combination of thrilling action, complex characters, and thought-provoking dialogue.
And it offers a very different perspective on war.
It does.
One that's often overlooked in other military anime.
Absolutely. Jormungand forces us to confront that uncomfortable reality that war is a global industry fueled by greed, ambition, the pursuit of power. It's a show that's both entertaining and thought-provoking, and it offers a unique and often unsettling look at the human cost of conflict.
So we've got arms dealers, time travel, gritty mecha. What else is on this incredible list of realistic military anime?
Well, there's one show that I think will resonate with you, especially given your love of thought-provoking narratives. It's called Planets. And it takes a completely different approach to military themes.
Okay, I'm not familiar with that one. What's it about?
So Planets is set in a future where humanity has started colonizing space. But there's a problem. Space debris.
Space debris.
All the leftover junk from satellites, rockets, other space missions is creating a dangerous hazard for spacecraft.
So it's like a futuristic garbage problem.
Exactly.
But on a cosmic scale.
But on a cosmic scale, and that's where Planets comes in. Okay. It follows a team of astronauts who work for a debris collection company.
A debris collection company.
Yeah, their job is to go out into space and collect this debris, prevent it from causing collisions and other disasters.
So they're like space garbage collectors.
Essentially, yes. But Planets is so much more than just a shooting about cleaning up space. It's a deeply human story that explores themes of environmentalism, the future of humanity, and the personal sacrifices that people make for the greater good.
I'm intrigued.
Okay.
How does a show about collecting space debris tie into military themes?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things that makes Planets so unique.
Okay.
It doesn't have giant robots or epic battles. But it explores the idea of war in a different context.
Okay.
The war against complacency, the war against environmental destruction, and the war against the forces that threaten humanity's future.
Go space. In space.
So it's like a more subtle, philosophical exploration of what it means to fight for something, even if it's not on like a traditional battlefield.
Exactly. And the characters in Planets are all dealing with their own personal battles as well. They're wrestling with questions of purpose, identity, and what it means to make a difference in a world that often feels vast and indifferent.
That sounds like a show that's both thought-provoking and emotionally resonant.
Oh, it is.
I'm definitely adding it to my list. But before we move on, I'm curious about something. We've talked a lot about how these anime challenge our assumptions about war and conflict. But do they offer any solutions? Or are they more about raising questions and making us think?
That's a really insightful question.
Yeah.
And I think the answer is both.
Okay.
They certainly challenge our assumptions.
And force us to confront uncomfortable truths. But they also, in their own way, offer these glimpses of hope, resilience, and of the human capacity for compassion and understanding, even in the midst of conflict.
It's like they're saying, look, the world is a complicated place. War is messy and brutal. But there's still hope for humanity, for connection, for finding common ground. Even when everything seems so divided.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons why these shows resonate so deeply with viewers. They offer this sense of hope. Not in a naive or simplistic way, but in a way that acknowledges the complexities of the world while still affirming the importance of human connection and the possibility of positive change.
So even though these shows deal with some pretty dark and challenging themes, they're ultimately about finding meanings and purpose and hope in a world that often feels chaotic and uncertain.
You've got it. And I think that's a powerful message, especially in today's world.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. We've explored mecha anime that prioritizes realism, isekai that subverts expectations, shows that delve into historical and alternate history settings, and even anime that examines the arms trade and the environmental challenges of space exploration. And we've seen how these shows use military themes to explore a wide range of complex and thought-provoking ideas about war, conflict, and the human condition.
It's been a truly fascinating exploration.
It has.
And I think one of the key takeaways is that realistic military anime isn't just one thing. It's a diverse and dynamic genre that's constantly evolving and finding new ways to challenge and engage viewers.
Right. And it's a genre that's worth exploring, even if you're not a typical anime fan. These shows have something to offer everyone. Thrilling action, compelling characters, thought-provoking themes, and a glimpse into a world that's both familiar and utterly unique.
And now, as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I'm curious to hear your thoughts. What stood out to you the most about these shows and the themes they explore?
Honestly, I'm struck by the sheer variety going into this. I thought realistic military anime would be a pretty niche category.
Right.
Focused mainly on, like, battles and tactics. But it's so much more than that.
It is.
It's about history, politics, philosophy, ethics, and even the future of humanity.
That's a great observation.
Yeah.
And it speaks to the power of anime as a medium. It's capable of tackling any subject matter, any genre, any theme, and doing so in a way that's both entertaining and thought-provoking.
And I think that's one of the reasons why anime has become such a global phenomenon. It's not just for kids or for a specific audience. It's for everyone who's looking for stories that challenge, inspire, and entertain.
Well said. And speaking of challenging and inspiring, I think it's time to address those fan comments that we touched on earlier.
Oh, yeah. I'm curious to hear what other insights viewers had about these shows.
Well, there was a really interesting comment about Alderamin on the Sky, which we mentioned earlier, as an isekai anime that stands out for its strategic complexity and its focus on the protagonist's intelligence.
Right, I remember that one. It's the show where the main character uses his knowledge of tactics and strategy to survive in a brutal military setting.
Exactly. And the fan who commented on this one was really impressed by the show's intelligence and its willingness to tackle complex issues. They described it as a smart anime with well-executed action sequences and thought-provoking themes.
So it sounds like they really appreciated the show's depth and its ability to combine entertainment with intellectual stimulation.
They did. And what's particularly interesting is that they expressed disappointment that the show didn't get a second season.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah.
It's always frustrating when a show with so much potential ends prematurely.
I agree, but it's also a testament to the show's impact that it left such a lasting impression on this viewer. They even mentioned that they're trying to read the original light novels to find out what happens next.
That's a true fan.
It is.
It's amazing how a show can captivate an audience so much that they're willing to seek out the source material to continue the story.
It really speaks to the power of storytelling. And in the case of Alderamin on the Sky, it seems like the fan was drawn to the show's intelligence, its strategic depth, and its willingness to tackle complex issues in this nuanced way.
It's a reminder that audiences crave substance. It's a reminder that audiences crave substance even in genres that are often associated with escapism and spectacle.
Absolutely. And that's why these realistic military anime are so important. They demonstrate that it's possible to create engaging and entertaining stories that also challenge viewers to think critically, broaden their perspectives, and engage with complex ideas.
Okay, so we've delved into some great examples of how these anime approach military themes in unique and thought-provoking ways. We talked about the gritty realism of Mobile Suit Gundam, the 08th MS Team, and Armored Trooper Votoms, the strategic brilliance of the saga of Tanya the Evil, and the ethical dilemmas explored in Zipang and Flag. And we've even seen how fans appreciate these shows for their intelligence, their emotional depth, and their willingness to tackle complex issues in a nuanced way.
It's been a fascinating discussion so far, and I think it highlights the diversity within this genre. It's not just one type of story or one type of setting. There's something here for everyone, as long as you're willing to look beyond the surface.
Right. So are we ready to unpack some more of these shows? Because I'm eager to dive deeper into how they blend action realism and those thought-provoking themes we've been discussing.
Let's do it. We've touched on Jormungand briefly, but I think it deserves a closer look after all. How often do you see an anime that dives headfirst into the world of arms dealing?
Yeah, that's a pretty unique premise, and it's handled in a way that's both entertaining and thought-provoking. Remember how we talked about Jormungand showing the seediest side of the military-industrial complex? Well, I think that's a pretty accurate description.
It is. The show doesn't shy away from the fact that war is a business, and Coco Hekmat-Yara, protagonist, is a very successful businesswoman in that world. She's ruthless, calculating, and she definitely knows how to play the game.
But she's not a one-dimensional villain, right? There's more to her than just greed and ambition.
Exactly, and that's what makes her such a compelling character. Jormungand explores the gray areas of her morality, showing us that even someone who profits from conflict can have their own code of ethics, their own sense of right and wrong.
It's like she's operating in a world where the lines are constantly blurred, and she's constantly having to make difficult choices that have far-reaching consequences.
Precisely, and the show explores those choices and those consequences in a way that's both thrilling and thought-provoking. It's not afraid to ask the hard questions about the nature of war, the motivations of those who profit from it, and the impact it has on the lives of ordinary people.
And it does so through a lens that we rarely see in other anime. It's not about giant robots or magical powers. It's about the behind-the-scenes deals, the political machinations, and the human cost of conflict that's often hidden from view.
You've hit the nail on the head. Jormungand peels back the layers of the military-industrial complex, revealing a world that's both fascinating and deeply unsettling. It's a show that will stay with you long after you've finished watching it.
Okay, so we've got arms dealers, time travel, and gritty mecha too. What else is on this incredible list of realistic military anime?
Well, there's one show that I think will resonate with you, especially given your love of thought-provoking narratives. It's called Planets, and it takes a completely different approach to military themes.
Planets.
Oh, okay.
I'm not familiar with that one. What's it about?
Planets is set in a future where humanity has started colonizing space, but there's a problem: space debris. All the leftover junk from satellites, rockets, and other space missions is creating a dangerous hazard for spacecraft.
So it's like a futuristic garbage problem, but on a cosmic scale.
Exactly, and that's where Planets comes in. It follows a team of astronauts who work for a debris collection company. Their job is to go out into space and collect this debris, preventing it from causing collisions and other disasters.
So they're like space garbage collectors.
Essentially, yes, but Planets is so much more than just a show about cleaning up space. It's a deeply human story that explores themes of environmentalism, the future of humanity, and the personal sacrifices that people make for the greater good.
I'm intrigued. How does a show about collecting space debris tie into military themes?
That's a great question, and it's one of the things that makes Planet so unique. It doesn't have giant robots or epic battles, but it explores the idea of war in a different context. The war against complacency, against environmental destruction, and against the forces that threaten humanity's future in space.
I was trying to see what you mean. It's like a more subtle philosophical exploration of what it means to fight for something, even if it's not on a traditional battlefield.
Exactly. And the characters in Planets are all dealing with their own personal battles as well. They're wrestling with questions of purpose, identity, and what it means to make a difference in a world that often feels vast and indifferent.
It sounds like a show that's both thought-provoking and emotionally resonant.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
definitely adding it to my list. But before we move on, I'm curious about something. We talked a lot about how these anime challenge our assumptions about war and conflict, but do they offer any solutions, or are they more about raising questions and making us think?
That's a really insightful question, and I think the answer is both. They certainly challenge our assumptions and force us to confront uncomfortable truths, but they also, in their own way, offer glimpses of hope, of resilience, and of the human capacity for compassion and understanding, even in the midst of conflict.
It's like they're saying, look, the world is a complicated place. War is messy and brutal, but there's still hope for humanity, for connection, for finding common ground even when everything seems so divided.
That's a beautiful way to put it, and I think that's one of the reasons why these shows resonate so deeply with viewers. They offer this sense of hope, not in a naive or simplistic way, but in a way that acknowledges the complexities of the world while still affirming the importance of human connection and the possibility of positive change.
So even though these shows deal with some pretty dark and challenging themes, they're ultimately about finding meaning and purpose and hope in a world that often feels chaotic and uncertain.
You've got it, and I think that's a powerful message, especially in today's world.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive. We've explored mecha anime that prioritizes realism, Isekai that subverts expectations, shows that delve into historical and alternate history settings, and even anime that examines the arms trade and the environmental challenges of space exploration. And we've seen how these shows use military themes to explore a wide range of complex and thought-provoking ideas about war conflict and the human condition.
It's been a truly fascinating exploration, and I think one of the key takeaways is that realistic military anime isn't just one thing. It's a diverse and dynamic genre that's constantly evolving and finding new ways to challenge and engage viewers.
Right, and it's a genre that's worth exploring even if you're not a typical anime fan. These shows have something to offer everyone: thrilling action, compelling characters, thought-provoking themes, and a glimpse into a world that's both familiar and utterly unique.
And now as we wrap up this deep dive, I'm curious to hear your thoughts. What stood out to you the most about these shows and the themes they explore?
Honestly, I'm struck by the sheer variety going into this. I thought realistic military anime would be a pretty niche category, focused mainly on battles and tactics. But it's so much more than that. It's about history, politics, philosophy, ethics, and even the future of humanity.
That's a great observation, and it speaks to the power of anime as a medium. It's capable of tackling any subject matter, any genre, any theme, and doing so in a way that's both entertaining and thought-provoking.
Right, and I think that's one of the reasons why anime has become such a global phenomenon. It's not just for kids or for a specific audience, it's for everyone who's looking for stories that challenge, inspire, and entertain.
Well said. And on that note, I think it's time to revisit those fan comments we touched upon earlier. What other insights did viewers share about these shows?
Yeah, I'm curious to hear more about how these shows resonated with actual fans.
Well, there was one comment that really stood out, and it was about Legend of the Galactic Heroes.
Oh, that's the epic space opera we talked about earlier, the one that's been compared to the fall of the Roman Empire.
That's the one. And the fan who commented on this one seemed to really appreciate the show's complexity and its willingness to delve into the nuances of history, politics, and the human condition.
So they weren't intimidated by the show's scope or its massive cast of characters.
Not at all. They seemed to relish the challenge. They mentioned how Legend of the Galactic Heroes had changed their perspective on leadership strategy and the cyclical nature of history. They even compared the show to classic works of literature like War and Peace and the Iliad.
Yeah, that's high praise.
Yeah.
It's not every day that you hear an anime being compared to some of the greatest works of literature ever written.
It's definitely a testament to the show's depth and its enduring impact, and it reinforces the idea that anime can be just as profound and intellectually stimulating as any other form of storytelling.
Okay, so we've explored some fantastic examples of realistic military anime. We've heard from fans who clearly have a deep appreciation for this genre, and I think we've all gained a better understanding of what makes these shows so unique and so compelling.
We have, and as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a final thought to ponder. We've talked about how these anime challenge our perceptions of war and conflict, but they also offer a glimmer of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit can endure and even thrive.
It's a powerful message, and one that's especially relevant in today's world. And if you're looking for anime that's more than just entertainment, if you're looking for stories that will challenge you, inspire you, and make you think, I highly recommend checking out some of the shows we've discussed today.
You might be surprised at what you discover, not just about anime, but about yourself and the world around you.
And on that note, thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of realistic military anime.
It's been a pleasure exploring these thought-provoking and unforgettable stories with you.